The setting of this murder mystery is this castle. I won't make a clue joke because the movie does it for me. Who got murdered? This guy, Harlan Thrombey. He writes murder mysteries. Keep up. 1 week later, Marta wakes up in her bed, distraught. Her sister is being insensitive by watching a crime show so campy that it sounds like an SNL skit about a crime show. Walter Thrombey, Harlan's son, requests Marta comes to the murder mansion. When she arrives, she is greeted by Hannah Baker, who then goes on to exposition that Marta was Harlan's nurse, and then chooches a vape. Jamie Lee Curtis, Harlan's daughter, announces that her son Ransom won't be there, and then she goes to get interviewed by the police. We get a series of interviews from Harlan's children and their significant others and their children as well, but it's all a bunch of questions they've already been asked before because the murder was a week ago. However, this time, whenever someone says a key piece of information, this mysterious fellow in the back presses a piano key. Now, I watched this movie 8 times before I pieced together that he was doing this to make a sharp waveform on the recording so that he could go back and see when something important was said. And I don't know if I'm an idiot or if that's just like a really clever detail, but it's yours now. You can keep it. Walt is the least successful of the Thrombeys, working as his father's publisher. His son is also an alt-right Nazi. They later announced the mysterious gentleman is private investigator Benoit Blanc, who is a modern-day Sherlock and relatively famous. The story then presents some facts that could serve as potential motives for a few of the major suspects. Walter has always wanted to make movies out of Harlan's books, and Harlan said no, and was about to fire him the next day after the party. Walt covers by saying it was a minor disagreement about audiobooks. During this, we learn that Ransom was in another room screaming with Harlan about something, and then he left. Richard, Linda's husband, also Jamie Lee Curtis, Linda is Jamie Lee Curtis, was overheard before the party arguing with Harlan, and the words that they heard was, "You tell her or I will." Richard covers up for his infidelity by saying Harlan was planning to put his 105-year-old mother into a home, and Linda didn't like that. Whatever. Joni, the widow of Neil Thrombey, was also at the house early. She had been taking Hannah Baker's $100,000 tuition both as a check and a direct deposit, double dipping. Harlan found out and cuts her off completely. Joni covers for this by saying it was just a small money wiring issue. Richard goes into Harlan's office to find this letter that he threatened to show his daughter. It's blank. The local detectives ask Blanc what he's doing here because it seems to be an open and shut case as suicide. Blanc then sees Marta and invites her out, looking down as he first addresses her. He has heard that Marta cannot lie without vomiting. This is somehow true. They use this quirk to confirm all the previous people were lying. Marta knows about this because her and Harlan were actually very close. Blanc explains that he was hired anonymously by an envelope full of cash. They replay the night of the party. Joni heard a noise at 11:30. Harlan and Marta had knocked over the go board. At midnight, Marta leaves. At 12:15, Walt sees Harlan coming down for a snack. Everyone was back in bed by 12:30, but Hannah Baker woke up at 3 a.m. because there were barking dogs. She went back to sleep. Marta is taken in for her official interview. Marta recalls the night from her perspective. She takes Harlan up to bed, and he insists that they play Go. Harlan is on 100 milligrams of Toradol and 3 milligrams of morphine. Marta does a little bit of a whoopsie and gives him 100 milligrams of morphine. Also, her emergency antidote is missing. Harlan, savant of murder mystery, instantly thinks of a plot to prove Marta innocent. An ambulance will not make it in time to save him, and he does not want her to be implicated. She has to leave loudly, sneak back into a window via trellis, dress up as Harlan, go downstairs for a snack, and then leave out the window again. That way, she can officially say she left at midnight and not lie and thus not vomit. Also, she fucked up and her parking to come back was on video. That's important. Also important, the 105-year-old woman saw her and thought it was Ransom. Harlan slashes his own throat to avoid toxicology reports being necessary. This movie is not a murder mystery, actually. I lied to you. It was Marta. Marta did it. She did it by accident, but there's still an hour and a half of movie left, so lock in. Flashback to the party, and they're having the MAGA debate. The alt-right people use Marta as an example of one of the good ones, and then Richard hands her a plate. She's Harlan's nurse. MAGA people are racist. That's what the movie's saying. And that's what I'm saying too, actually. Fuck them. Back in the now, Hannah Baker smokes some weed that Fran the maid had hidden in a stash. Hannah gets Walt, and Walt announces that the family decided to financially help Marta, presumably forever. When Marta is leaving, Blanc is lurking and recruits Marta to be his Watson. One more quick flashback. Marta was actually in the room when Harlan did the neck slashy. There is a tiny speck of blood on her shoe. The, security man? I'm not sure what this guy's role is. He has a tape of the night. Blanc intends to take the tape to the police, and Watson says she's got it. Marta has a fridge magnet. Did I miss her picking that up? And she uses it to smoke the tape. Then tracks are found, and Marta, genius, overrides them with her right now tracks, and when they call her back, she overrides them with her even more right now tracks. The dogs, man's best friend, clutch up and also override the tracks. At the will reading, Ransom is present for the first time ever, and he is Chris Evans. Nice. His real name is Hugh. Less nice. They all sling shit about how much Harlan loved them more than each other, especially Ransom. He really thinks so. The Nazi child, who was in It Part 1, overheard Ransom's argument more clearly, and it was about his will, and how Ransom wasn't going to be a part of it or something. Blanc finds a piece of broken trellis and mud in the hallway by the trick window upstairs. So in the actual twist, Harlan left everything to Marta. The house, all of his money, all of his investments in Scandium, invest before it's too late, the rights to the books, all of it. Marta leaves in shock, and Ransom, who is overjoyed that his leech family members are plumb broke, helps her escape. At a diner, Ransom feeds Marta beans and makes her regale the story, including the truth about mixing up the meds. The lawyer explains the Slayer rule, that one's killer, if they were murdered, is exempt from inheritance. So Ransom decides that he doesn't fuck with his family, and he's gonna help Marta out in exchange for what would have been his cut of the inheritance. Hannah Baker tries to make Marta give up the money. Realistically, she's the closest to a good person in that house, and is just in a panic about not being able to afford school. Marta says she'll handle that. The call was not private. Marta wakes up to reporters. Blanc is going to interrogate or maybe just have a conversation with Harlan's fossil of a mother. Marta tries to sneak out the back of her place, and Walt shows up and he's like, "Hey, Marta, it sure would be a shame if your immigrant mother got deported." And Marta says, "I have $60 million. I can afford lawyers." And then she leaves. She receives an ominous, mostly covered up tox report for Harlan with a vague threat. She shows it to Ransom, and he surmises that the jig is up, unless they get rid of the toxicology report. Turns out at 5 a.m., the medical lab had already burned down. Marta and Ransom arrive to see this. Blanc is also there. Marta checks her email and sees that the blackmail came with an address and time, 10 a.m. It is currently 9:32. I had to rewind this 3 times because I kept looking away when they showed the time. There is a hilarious car chase with a hatchback. They're caught. Ransom is arrested, as Great Nana told Blanc that she saw Ransom climbing the trellis. Blanc rides back with Marta and she makes a stop at the designated rendezvous point. Fran is there and she appears to be overdosing and says, "Copy, stashed," and then, "You did this." Marta, angel that she is, chooses to use her medical expertise to try to save Fran instead of letting dying maids die. That was a lot funnier in my head. At the hospital, Blanc hears that Ransom gave the cops the whole story. Marta regales her entire story to Blanc, and she also insists that she has to be the one to tell the family that she was responsible for Harlan's death. The doctor has Marta's number and will call if any updates to Fran happens. Blanc also calls the detectives to come over and bring Ransom with them. They arrive, and Hannah Baker says, "Wow, I could really go for some of that Maui kush that Fran has stashed," and Marta realizes that that's where the toxicology report probably is. They take it, and Marta goes to admit the truth to the family. As she begins, Blanc reads the toxicology report and interrupts her, claiming that Marta is an innocent soul who they mistreated, and officially rules that Harlan's death is a suicide. The detectives, Blanc and Marta, gather in the room with the knife circle. Blanc then retells the case, the whole case, from his perspective. Lock in, because I'm gonna try and make this fast and also not miss any important details. Blanc still does not understand why he was hired. The will was sealed, so who would have suspected a crime to reverse the will? And how would they know that Marta, the name on the will, was responsible? He calls Ransom in. Marta explains that Great Nana simply thought that Marta was Ransom, obviously. Blanc asks Ransom a simple question. Why did you hire me? Ransom is not receptive to this question. Blanc goes back to the night of the party. He starts at the argument. Harlan told Ransom the full truth about Marta becoming the sole inheritor before Ransom stormed out. Blanc believes that Ransom formed a plan. He returned to the house, snuck upstairs, switched the liquids in Marta's vials, and then stole the antidote. Blanc covered the labels, and Marta correctly identified the morphine via imperceptible differences that only she could see. Marta had given Harlan the correct medication. Due to Ransom switching them, he was not actually given 100 milligrams of morphine, and the tox report showed that his blood was clean. Great Nana did not confuse Ransom for Marta. She just saw them both. Blanc continues. Ransom returned at 3 a.m. to try to retrieve the evidence, but the dogs barked at him because they don't like him because he's an asshole. Those dogs woke up Hannah Baker at 3 a.m., and he left. Ransom had hired Blanc because he needed the crime to be uncovered. He recovered the bag during the funeral, and Fran saw him. Fran then used her cousin in the medical lab to get a copy of the toxicology report to blackmail Ransom. But Ransom wants the tox report to implicate Marta. Then at the diner, Marta told him the truth, and he decided to help her by destroying the report that would prove her innocent. He burns down the lab at 5 a.m. He meets with Fran at 9 a.m. and drug overdoses the hell out of her. When Marta had seen her, she said Hugh did this, not you did this, because his first name is Hugh. Ransom says, "Lamau, where is your evidence, though?" Marta gets a call and confirms that Fran is stable at the hospital and will double down on this story. Ransom realizes that the jig is truly up and says, okay, she lived, so that means I didn't kill anyone, so fuck you. And then Marta pukes on him because she lied and Fran is dead. At this point, the jig is in the fucking stratosphere and Ransom just reaches for a knife and tries to stab Marta, but it was a prop knife. Turns out the movie was a murder mystery the entire time. I lied to you again. Linda goes to check her dad's office and finds the empty note. As Ransom is being arrested, everyone looks hella pressed by the truth. Linda uses a flame to reveal the invisible ink, the way she communicated with Harlan since she was a little girl, which is something that you think her husband would know about, but anyway, she learns about the infidelity. Linda's the true victim of this movie. She lost both a son and a husband, and didn't gain anything. Afterward, Marta asks Benoit Blanc when he knew that she was involved. He said immediately and pointed out the blood on her shoe. Remember how he said he looked down when he met her? Yeah, this movie is really fucking good. Marta then stands on the balcony of her house, drinking tea as the Thrombies look up at her. This isn't really an opinion video, it's more of a recap, which is more my speed, but here's an opinion for you. This has got to be one of the best mystery movies in a long, long time. Will I cover the other two Knives Out movies? Maybe. If I do, they'll both be in one video though. And I will do that if this video does well, so fucking like it and comment or whatever. A huge shout out to my patrons. At the Dragon tier, we have Travis, my A1 since day one. You know I love you. In the Kraken tier, we have Carlos G, Rohan Krishnan, Matthew Johnson, and Secret Bird. It's a funny name. I know that this isn't exactly the video I promised was going up in July, and it might actually go up in the first week of August because editing takes a while. But Stranger Things is around the corner. It's just a much bigger project, and I wanted to get something out. If you want to join these amazing people in supporting me, you can do so with the link at the top of the description. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.